Vietnam is located in Southeast Asia and is bordered by China, Cambodia, and Laos. It is generally divided into regions of northern, central, and southern Vietnam. The Chinese colonized Vietnam from 111 BC to 939 AD. The centuries of Chinese occupation had a significant impact on Vietnamese food. For example, cooking techniques such as stir-frying in a wok and using chopsticks for cooking and eating were introduced from China. Celebratory foods were also influenced by Chinese colonization, such as the Vietnamese New Year rice cake, called the Banh Tet. These cakes have elements of Chinese influence, such as a soy sauce dip, but also distinct Vietnamese flavors. The French formed the French Indochina, which included present-day Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. The most notable influence of the French on Vietnamese food is the baguette. However, the Vietnamese adapted the baguette to their own taste, adding rice flour to make it lighter and then filling it with Vietnamese ingredients. Staple foods are foods that are consumed regularly and contribute a large proportion of energy and nutrients to the diet. Generally, staple foods are easily sourced in the region and will be resilient under difficult conditions. Supplementary foods are important alongside staple foods to meet an individual's nutrient requirements. They are often eaten in smaller quantities and also important sources of vitamins and minerals. Northern Vietnam has the coldest climate, so spices are limited and food is milder. It is also close to China, so has greater similarities to Chinese food. Southern Vietnam has a warm climate and fertile lands, so there is a large variety of fruit and vegetables. It is also close to Cambodia, so there are more curries here. Central Vietnam was home of the last Vietnamese royal family, so the food here is sophisticated, spicy, and colourful. The Vietnamese balanced their food with the 5 elements: wood, earth, water, fire, and metal, which correspond to different tastes. They also correspond to internal organs of the body, nutrients, colours, and senses of the food. Vietnamese people also believe that food has either a heating or cooling property that provides balance for the body. This means that each meal should have a cool and warm element. For example, seafood is cool and can be balanced with ginger, which is warm. Vietnam is the 3rd largest exporter of rice in the world, producing approximately 7 million tons of rice in 2016. However, after the Vietnam War, rice production was very low under the communist rule and poverty became widespread. Many Vietnamese people had died in the war and others were forced to flee the country as refugees. However, in the 1980s, the policies changed to a contract system, and this increased rice production significantly. The main key differences between Australian and Vietnamese food consumption are between rice, soybeans, vegetable, and fish. For example, rice consumption in Australia is only 11.03 kilograms per capita per year compared to 144.56 kilograms per capita per year in Vietnam. It is important to note, however, that consumption of rice in Australia has increased substantially from 3.12 to 11.03 kilograms per capita per year from 1961 to 2013. However, it has always been a staple food with high consumption in Vietnam over this time period. After the takeover of southern Vietnam by the communist northern Vietnam in 1975, Australia accepted approximately 60,000 Vietnamese refugees. Before this, fewer than 2,000 Vietnamese people lived in Australia. The Orderly Departure Program was formed in 1979 between the Australian and Vietnamese government, and this allowed for families of Vietnamese Australians to migrate to Australia. There is a lot of exposure to Vietnamese food culture in Australia. For example, Luc Nguyen is a Vietnamese celebrity chef who has his own TV show on the SBS. This explores Vietnamese and other Asian cuisines. He's also released Vietnamese cooking books within Australia. There is also a lot of exposure to Vietnamese food through blogs and popular online magazines such as Broadsheet. For example, this article describes the traditional Vietnamese dish pho and its popularity in Melbourne. Vietnamese cuisine has a significant role within Australian food culture. For example, Rolled is a large Vietnamese food chain that can be found in most shopping centres in Australia. Vietnamese food festivals are also popular across Australia. You can also find Vietnamese ingredients readily available, so Australians are able to cook their own Vietnamese meals at home.
Created using Powtoon.